And welcome everybody. This quiz is all about layer 2 security. If you have not already done so, please subscribe. Make it easy to find me. I've got a whole playlist of quiz questions. If you're watching this recorded version, please enjoy, but also feel free to join us every Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific, for another online live CCNA level quiz. All right, having said that, here's our quiz for today. Buckle up, here we go. Glad you are here. And here's the first question. Which would provide the best prevention against DNS and default gateway misinformation? How do we protect our clients that are getting IP addresses against this? All right, DHCP snooping, and here is the reason. And this happens accidentally all the time. All the time. In fact, I'm guilty of doing it accidentally more than just once in my career. It's if we have a network, and let's say this represents the network, and it's a switch, lots of ports hanging off, and somebody brings in a home router. Just like Linksys, whatever flavor he has, and she has, they bring it in, they plug it in their cube in their office, or they connect a switch and they connect it. Well, that guy is just, he's advertising DHCP services like crazy. So if there's a client, let's say this is YARS. So YARS's computer's right here, it boots up, it's a DHCP client, and then a quick review, and I mean quick. This client says, hey, shouts out, is there a DHCP server available? That's referred to as a discover message. And any DHCP servers that hear that are going to go ahead and make an offer, including the home router. So you can have clients that are getting IP addresses from in the wrong range and everything else from the, these rogue DHCP servers. And then if this YARS computer loves it, it'll say, I'll request that IP address, I'll take it. And then after that, the DHCP server sends an acknowledgement. And that's the DORA process. The DORA, the Explorer, the 4 major packets in a DHCP exchange. And if it's whether it's a home router somebody brought in, or whether it's an attacker, which is more likely to cause real harm, the attacker, if they, first of all, they totally wipe out your existing DHCP server by making hundreds of requests for addresses and using basically DHCP exhaustion, which is a real thing, where it's not just means that your DHCP server is tired, it means your DHCP server has no more IP addresses to hand out. And so once the attacker exhausts the DHCP server, the real one, it then goes ahead and puts up its own DHCP server on the network that it's directly connected to, and that would extend to any VLANs where that VLAN exists. And then the attacker is now listening, and when YARS does the discover, the attacker answers, and the attacker supplies things like, hey, it's my IP address for the default gateway, so it can be a man in the middle. Hey, it's my IP address for the DNS server, so it can go ahead and lie about URL information about the IP addresses behind it, and basically own the whole network. And to prevent that DHCP snooping, if we enable it by default, the switch has one big word. And let me change my font on my pen for this. Here it is. The word, if we enable DHCP snooping, is no. I'm not allowing DHCP server messages coming in from anybody. You might think, well, that's harsh. You mean, let's say this is VLAN 1. No DHCP offers or acknowledgements or messages at all? And the switch says, that's correct, because I'm doing DHCP snooping. What if we have the real DHCP server sitting right here? What do we do? Well, we make this port a DHCP trusted port. And that simply says, yeah, we will allow incoming traffic from a DHCP server on that port. Even though DHCP snooping is enabled on the VLAN, we're going to trust DHCP server messages that are coming in on this exact port. I do want to give you a heads up for another question coming up or two, also that'll help. If you have a situation like this, where you have a couple switches, there's switch 1, there's switch 2, and there's our DHCP server right here, DHCP, and between them we have a trunk, between the two switches. Well, if both switches, let's assume just one VLAN here, if both switches are doing DHCP snooping, and we have YARS, the client again, right here, and YARS does a discover, that discover gets sent as a broadcast, it goes over the trunk. If it's the native VLAN, it won't be tagged, but either way, it goes over the trunk. This switch receives it, forwards that broadcast, this DHCP server hears it, and when it makes the offer, that offer is now going in here on this trusted port, so it's allowed in the switch 2, and then it gets sent over the trunk. And this incoming trunk port right here, if that's also not trusted, it's going to say, whoa, DHCP snooping is enabled, and I see a DHCP server message. I'm going to kill it. So DHCP snooping is really applicable, and what we want to do is have it applied to access ports, but we probably want to make our trunk ports, all of them, trusted. And that way, if we move a DHCP server somewhere else in the topology, that DHCP server traffic can go across the trunks. What we're really trying to do is prevent somebody from bringing in or attaching on an access port, pretending to be a DHCP server. All right. Let me clear that off. That was fun. That'll give you some heads up on several questions to come. And let's see who's in first place. Kind Dolphin. Whoop, 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 whoop. Way to go, Kind Dolphin. Love it. Followed by Mountain Dragon, Dazzled Quail, Witty Fox, and Melodic Goose. If you have the courage to do so, I would also have you in the chats right now type in your game name that you're currently using for this game. And that way, that adds a little bit of additional excitement and pressure. But if you're up for it, just right now, go ahead and type in, I am Kind Dolphin, or I am Mountain Dragon, and so forth. We're off to a great start. Here is question number 2. It is multiple select, and it's double points, no pressure. But I'm looking for 2 specific answers regarding this port, which is Gigabit Ethernet 2/0/3. Which 2 things are true? Which of the following are true regarding this port? And this port is not trusted. Our packets without IP to packet bindings are denied. And wow, look at that. We have a whole bunch of people on blue. Why is that? The max MAC address is learned will be 2. Why is that? I also gave double points in this quiz to every question that is based on some type of a CLI output, because that helps us to integrate what we're learning conceptually with how it actually works. So here's what I know from this output, which I created. In the running config, it's doing IP ARP inspection for VLAN 600 through 800. That's enabled. I also see from this output that this interface, gig 2/0/3, which is the port in question, that it's associated as an access port in VLAN 777. That means ARP inspection is enabled on it. So that means this yellow answer down here, ARP packets that are sent in from a device on this port, if they're not congruent, meaning the switch thinks that like layer 3 address A goes with layer 2 address A, it has those matched, or let's say B, has those matched up. And if there's an ARP message, because ARP inspection is on, there's an ARP message where this guy claims, oh, my layer 2 address is C, and it's not mapped up with what the switch believes, it's going to drop it. That's because ARP inspection, that's what it does. It just makes sure that nobody's lying on any ports that are not trusted for ARP inspection. It makes sure that no ports are going to be lying about messages they're sending related to ARP. So that's why this yellow one's true. And the port is not trusted. And with this, it's not trusted for anything, frankly. It's not trusted for DHCP snooping. It's not trusted for ARP inspection. All that's true. It would be here in the config. And that's why green is true. So why does so many people jump on blue? The answer here, switch port security maximum 2. That looks like the maximum number of MAC addresses. However, the feature is not enabled on this port. That's the only problem here. You can say the violation mode all you want. You can specify maximum number of MAC addresses. You can specify the voice VLAN. You can just have a party talking about all the options that you want to set for port security. But if we don't enable it, which is not enabled, it doesn't matter. It's not being used. So switch port -security enter is what turns on the feature. And that is the most common misconfiguration when people are enabling port security is they set the maximum, they set the violation action, but they fail to enable the feature. So is that a little bit of a trick question, I would say? I wrote this question to have you think about it, and it's very common. And so now we've seen it, now we know. Let me go ahead and clear off the screen, and let's continue on. That also will help with a few questions coming up. All right, next. Here we go. Mountain Dragon. Followed by Rockstar Otter, Space Zebra, Jolly Frog, and Majestic Dingo. Whatever. Oh, look at this. Up 59 places. Golden Owl is the highest climber. Oh, it's anybody's game. There's a lot of double points coming up too. Glad you're here. This is multiple select. I'm looking for 3 answers out of 4. Just look for the one that's not true. Which baseline config can protect unused layer 2 switch ports? And when I mean baseline, I'm talking about you get a brand new switch, you're about to roll it out. What can we do to all the ports by default before we start configuring them to have the best possible security posture? All right. And those 3 answers that are marked correctly, shut down the ports, put them in a non-production VLAN. For example, if you're not using VLAN 999, maybe create one as a parking lot for ports that aren't being used. So by default, if there's a port that's plugged into that's not supposed to be available, like somebody is going in the lobby and plugging something in, they're going to end up with a port that's shut down, a port that if it wasn't shut down, it goes to a nowhere VLAN. And then configuring them as a static access port is really important, because if that port is willing to use DTP, Dynamic Trunk Protocol, and it's willing to negotiate a trunk, if you just see somebody on the other side who's willing in desirable state, like a hacker machine with like Yersinia or a number of tools will do it from Kali Linux, then the hacker now has a trunk into the switch. And once they have a trunk, they can then tag their frames and they can join any VLAN they want just by tagging it and having an appropriate IP address. All right, so those are the 3 correct answers, and that's why. Great to have everybody here. As we continue on, Mountain Dragon, first place, Jolly Frog, Rockstar Otter, Space Zebra, and Dazzled Quail, top 5. But Mountain Dragon, man, 7,137 points. Amazing. All right, here's question 4 of 9 in layer 2 security. We're like almost halfway there. Which of the following are defaults for port security? 60 seconds on the clock. The faster you answer it, the more points you get if they are correct answers. I'm looking for 3. Just look for the one that's not related to port security and you're gold. Choose all the others. The 3 that are on the screen are the defaults. Maximum number of MAC addresses is 1. It's disabled by default, and the violation action by default is shut down. And port security, the feature port security, isn't related to ARP inspection. It's not related to DHCP snooping. That's why red is off the table there. All right, great job. Here we go. Continuing on. Question 5 of 9. It's multiple select. It's also double points, so the heat is on. A non-DHCP client on this port that's about to show up here, it can't access the network. What are 2 solutions that could solve this? I really enjoy these quizzes, by the way. They're so much fun. And they keep getting better, too. We have more people show up. I tweak them and make them more effective, I think, every single week. So it's great to have you. Also, the feature they added that allows the actual image and the answers to show up on your mobile device is great. All right, a non-DHCP client on this port cannot, hey, thanks Solid Shadow, appreciate that. A non-DHCP client on this port cannot access the network. Which 2 solutions could solve this? And we've got, a slight majority on the 2 correct answers. Let's talk about why for a moment. Let me bring up a pen. And what do we know? That's what I think when I look at an output. I think, what do we know from this output? This says that ARP inspection, that means no lying about what your layer 2 address is in ARP-related messages, is enabled for VLAN 600, 601, 602, all the way through 800. All right, skip to the end. And if we're looking at the output of gig 209, which is the question that we're involved here, so I imagine we have a switch. There's port 2/0/9. There's the user connected on that. Let's say it's Ari. So Ari is connected to that port, and he can't access the network. Now, why is that? So it's in 675. So ARP is okay. Here we go. And he's a non-DHCP client. I was just trying to put the pieces together. So if this guy's a non-DHCP client, that means that he has a static IP address that's configured on it. Let's say it's 10.1.0.99 or whatever it is. Because he didn't do DHCP, that means that DHCP snooping, which not only, this is important, it's not only just protecting against DHCP, rogue DHCP servers showing up, but it's also building a binding table by default. So it's paying attention to DHCP messages. So when, like, let's say Lois here, Lois gets an IP address via DHCP. Let's say she got .98. When she gets that IP address, that goes in DHCP snooping. If it's also enabled, adds that to the binding table. It's going to say, okay, .98 is mapped with port 2/0/8. We'll say that's the port Lois is on. And the MAC address is 001234567890 or something, whatever the MAC address is. And that's the binding table. And that's what ARP inspection uses to make sure that the traffic, the ARP traffic coming in and out in this port, really going into this port, is not being lied about. It matches up with that binding table. So if we have a client like Ari who's connected and it's not a DHCP client, there's no binding entry. So the solutions could be have Ari be a DHCP client, and that way it would show up in the binding table for port 209, and that way ARP inspection wouldn't be stopping his ARP messages from being sent out. And the second option is we could create an ARP ACL. And what the ARP ACL is effectively, it's just a set of mappings that map layer 3 addresses, IP addresses, to layer 2 addresses, and then we tell ARP inspection to also, we can say just use this list, or we can say use the DHCP snooping binding table and the ARP ACL. But I think that's the two solutions, the only two options here that I saw based on this scenario. Let me clear that off and let's take a look. Let's go back and look at the question now that I talked about all that. Yeah, make the client a DHCP client and configure an ARP ACL, and then also apply that ARP ACL to the configuration for ARP inspection. All right, if you didn't know that, now you do. Appreciate you being here. We're learning and growing together. I learn new stuff all the time. We had office hours yesterday, and let me bring up this real quick. So we had office hour yesterday, and I demonstrated port security and DHCP snooping, and also a cam table overflow attack that we stopped with port security. And I had some results that I wasn't expecting, and I still don't know what caused them exactly, but it was all about troubleshooting. You know, is it the client, or is it the switch, or who's causing this challenge? And that's the benefit of labbing stuff up. It gives you the opportunity to, here's the deal. I've been doing networking for a long time, and I still like it, but I still learn a ton. In fact, whenever I go in and lab something, I usually remember something or better understand something than I did previously. So it's never too late to start learning, and it's never too, you never want to stop labbing. And that's the big secret. So lab it up, lab it up, lab it up. If you have a question about something, here's what I do. I'll be quick. If somebody asks me a question about something, I think, I'm not, I don't recall how that works off the top of my head. I will Google it, and then I'll usually lab it up. If it's something, that takes a few minutes, just lab it up. Say, yep, that's the expected behavior. That's how that works. Now I know. And when we do that, when we both research it and lab it up, oh my gosh, it's a winning combination. Just incredible. So I encourage everybody to do it. And these techniques and topics that we're learning, they'll serve you for a long, long time. It's not just something you memorize for an exam. It's something that you can use. And then when you get to troubleshooting, it's like, okay, I understand all these pieces and this isn't working. How can I apply what I know to solving the problem? So great again to have everybody here. Mountain Dragon still in first place. Clicking on next. Here we go. Question 6 of 9. Double points. DHCP is failing for a device in VLAN 55. We're looking here at switch 1. That's important to be aware of. Look at the host name. We're looking at the output of switch 1, but the DHCP server is over on switch 2 in VLAN 55. The client's also in VLAN 55. So, what is needed to help this device actually get an IP address via DHCP? Look at that! Make the trunk a trusted port. There's so many people on the right answer. I'm so pleased. That means couple things. One is you were listening earlier, which I do appreciate, and that's fantastic. Excellent work, everybody. I'm glad you're here. And Mountain Dragon, 15,284. I need to know who Mountain Dragon, you can maintain your anonymity unless you already posted it earlier. I'll take a look on the next question. So great job for everybody who's here. And here's question 7 of 9. Here we go. It's multiple select. It's double points. That means there's going to be some kind of an output here that we're going to have to interpret. Which of the following are true? And you get to choose all that apply. That could be 1, 2, 3, or all answers correct. I'll let you be the judge of that. And the only one that wasn't a correct answer here is the maximum default for voice VLAN is being used. So learning MAC address will go to the running config. Let's take a look at the output. Let me mark it up right here. It'll work. So this is from the Sticky, STICKY. Sticky Learning says that when a MAC address shows up, assuming it's not above the threshold for port security, Sticky says, please put that in the running config. And that way, if we had, like say we had 400 ports to deal with, we could turn on Sticky Learning, turn on all 400 machines, and then save the config to the startup config. And that'd be a quick way of getting a whole bunch of computers and their MAC addresses into the configuration without manually inputting them if you wanted to do that. But that's what Sticky does. Running config and then a save to startup config would actually permanently save those. 802.1q is in use on this port, and that's because there's a voice VLAN. So with voice VLANs, here's the switch, and there's the port. And if it's got a voice VLAN, and it's got a data VLAN, and then we are connected to a phone. I'm going to draw my phone there. That's because I'm over 50. That's what my phones look like. And there's a rotary dial just because we can. All right, so there's a phone. Actually, it's an IP phone. And then there's a little switch built in there, and then hanging off that phone, then we have the PC. This PC would be, let's say it's going to be Amos. So Amos, depending on how that is correctly pronounced. So Amos's PC is here, and when he sends traffic, or when this computer sends traffic into the network, the switch sees it and lets it go through untagged. And then the phone, when it's communicating with the network, if the voice VLAN is, I forget what the voice VLAN was, but let's say it's 9 as an example, it would tag its own frames with a VLAN of 9 with 802.1q, and that would show up at the switch. And that's how the switch port knows that, okay, untagged frames belong to like VLAN 4 or whatever the data VLAN is, and the tagged frames with VLAN 9 are the voice VLAN coming from the phone. Now that I did those, let me clear that off, and let me take a look at the media. Okay, the voice VLAN is VLAN 11, and the data VLAN is VLAN 10, and then there's some maximum set for both of those, and then they're sticky. And let's see, maximum default for access VLAN is not being used. The default maximum, which is 1, is not being used. 802.1q is in use, and the learned MAC addresses will go into the running config, and that's because it's sticky. All right, we're learning and growing. Here we go. Continuing on. Whoop, 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 whoop. Stop the truck. Dazzled Quail is in first place. Congratulations. Wow, the competition is getting stiff here. Dazzled Quail, Jolly Frog, Woody Fox, Smiling Yak, and Mountain Dragon. It's on. It's on. There's only 2 more questions. Oh my gosh, here we go. Double points. Which of the following is true regarding this port? Good luck, everybody. The pressure's on. Okay, well, we got 48 on the right answer. Let's talk about why the other ones weren't true. We got quite a bit with red. Maximum number of MAC addresses learned is 2. And why isn't that true? Let's take a peek. And I think the reason that's not true is because of the number 1 failure in configuring port security. It's not enabled. So if it's not enabled, none of those maximums or violation actions matter because they're not in use on that port. So what else was here? ARP traffic won't be inspected. That's because this is a trusted port from the perspective of ARP inspection. If we wanted to make it a trusted port for DHCP snooping, that would be a separate command, but we could do that as well. That is it. All right, I'm having a lot of fun. I appreciate you being here. All right, moving on. Let's see who's in top. Dazzled Quail. I think we've got one. Oh my goodness. We've got one more question. That's it. So Dazzled Quail, Jolly Frog, Smiling Yak, Mountain Dragon, and Majestic Dingo. And also, anybody else who's really in the top 20 right now, here's your opportunity. It's your opportunity to lose it all or win it big right now. And the reality is, all of you here, everybody who's here right now, studying and learning and practicing, you're all winners because you're putting in the time. I just from my experience working with IT over the last 3 decades, I can tell you that a lot of people are surprised and shocked. Like, how did you get XYZ certification? Or how did you get this knowledge? Or how did you get that job? And the answer is 1 day at a time. That's it. Like, how did you learn XYZ? Like, whatever it is, I just took it 1 day at a time, and I just gradually and consistently chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. This is not a sprint. The world of IT is a marathon, and you have to have the right shoes, and you have to have the right gear, and you have to have the right training. And CCNA is that. It's the right gear and training and fundamentals for you to succeed as you continue past CCNA. This is just a stepping stone that I would love to help you accomplish. So a lot of people say, what do you need to get a CCNA? Number 1, you need to carve out the time. 2, you need some kind of a study resource that covers all the blueprint items. So my YouTube channel does not do that. My YouTube channel is great. I've got like 30, 40 quiz, sessions. I've got like 150 videos regarding CCNA, but it's not going to cover every single bullet point, but it covers what I think are the most important ones. And so if you ever, let's get back on track. Time, you need to have a study material of some type that covers everything. And then use this channel as a resource to refresh, reinforce, dive in, join me for office hour, all the rest. And the third thing that you need to do is lab it up in Packet Tracer. It's free. Packet Tracer is free. I've got videos on that as well. So that's it. Yeah. Study material, schedule time, Packet Tracer, and do it. And don't let anybody stop you. And don't make a big deal out of it either. Because what happens for me, and I'll go back to the last questions coming up. What I do sometimes is I'll talk to people like, I'm going to do this. And then, I don't know, something about the urgency of that once I've said, I'm going to do this, sometimes fades. So if you're going to do something, set out a plan and do it. If you want to also talk about it, that's fine, or you have your loved ones committed to helping you get that done. But just fairly quietly with your head just a little bit down, just focus on it and just don't listen to everybody who says you can't. The people who say you can, like me and Network Chuck and David Bombal and Jeremy's IT Lab and I think it's Neil off of Udemy, who they all make great content. We all believe you can do it, and it's going to make a difference. And so anybody else you see that says you can't do it, just ignore that and just move on. All right, here we go. Last question, and this is for all the marbles. Here it is. What is the most, oh my gosh, the faster you answer, the more points you get. What's the most frequent mistake when configuring port security? Go, 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 go. All right, 90 people on the right answer. Forgetting to enable the feature on the port is indeed the number 1 most frequent mistake, because you can configure the maximums for MAC addresses. You can configure the violation action, but if you don't enable the feature, it's not going to happen. All right, and Kelvin just confirmed with me that right after this live stream on Discord, Kelvin is going to do an intro to Python. Thank you. I now recall, which is fantastic. So if you're interested in Python, it's going to be in the above CCNA voice chat room on Discord. There's a link in this video for that. You can join us there. We'd love to have you. And I appreciate all the people who are supporting each other. All right, here's the winners table. And number 1 is Dazzled Quail with almost 20,000 points. My congratulations to everybody. Let me grab some feedback from you as well. So these are the toughest 4 questions. They are most valuable for me. If we are to see these again because of the tutorials we wove into this, I think you do a lot better next time they come around. So that's fantastic. And then I also have a question for you about office hour coming up in just a moment. All right, let me go ahead and grab that feedback if I could. I'll bring this camera full screen. So let me say goodbye to everybody else, and then we'll continue just for a few minutes with some Q&A right here on this live stream. And that concludes our quiz. Thanks for joining us. If you want to join us for the live events, you're welcome to do so. They're every Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, right here on the Keith Barker channel. So until the next live event, be kind to everybody, keep studying, and have fun. Bye for now.